Hey everybody, John, you're here in Maryland K-12. Just came across this article and I shared it the other day. It's called "The High Cost of Classroom Disorder," and it's by the City Journal, which is pretty well respected journal out of New York. So if you get a chance, check out some of my other posts, and I'll see if I can post in the links here or in the in the chat here. But the bottom line is they talk about, and I'm really glad somebody finally came out and said this, and I haven't really thinking much of it. They talk about PBIS. If you're not familiar with what PBIS is, stands for Positive Behavior and Intervention Support, or something, something like that. And it's a pretty standard system that many, many, many schools use. And it is kind of a system where they basically reward. The theory is you're going to reward the positive behavior, and students will thrive to demonstrate the more positive behavior. I've been involved in a lot of schools who did PBIS, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't like it. Uh, I don't like it, and I don't like it for a lot of reasons. But some of the ones that they point out, I was really glad. So if you're in a PBIS school out there and you're going, you're not alone. Okay, you're not alone. But unfortunately, it's kind of embedded in what we're doing, and there's really not much else you can do because it's here and it's here to stay. But anyway, just some thoughts on this. It's supposed to be this marketed as a research-based restorative approach, but in many districts, it just becomes kind of this excuse for poor accountability, with leaving teachers with less tools to really manage disruptive behaviors. It very often puts a level of interventions prior to administrator intervention, which then reduces the number of office referrals. So then the schools can say, look at us, we've reduced our office referral. Well, maybe you reduced your office referral, but it's like smoke and mirrors. If a kid in an older system might have been referred to the office, now in the PBIS system, the kid is given some other kind of a something, whatever, at classroom level. Now I'm all for teachers, taking care of their own, taking care of their business in their own classroom, but it kind of creates this tiered system of teachers required to do more before they send them to the administrator. There's a lot of there's where I am, Worcester County. They did this thing called conscious discipline. I think it was conscious discipline. I can't remember which one it was. It was the same, similar, and they're talking about, our referrals are down, referrals are down, referrals are down. Yeah, the referrals are down because the teachers are dealing with it in the classroom. Is the behavior actually changing? If you read this article, it'll say not necessarily. Because they usually, will argue, say, hey, we've got lower suspension numbers, but they doesn't always reflect better behavior. It just means that fewer kids are being suspended is all that means. It doesn't mean, that the classroom continues to be disrupted. But to me, one of the biggest things, again, this is just like a system of keeping track of things. The thing that always got me, and teachers will really agree with it, or they'll identify with this, shall we say? The kids. This is why I didn't like it, both as a teacher and an administrator. I couldn't stand it. Well, I say I couldn't stand it. I didn't like it. Here's why: the kids who were the most disruptive usually ended up being the ones at the top of the list of all the awards. Think about that. I remember the first year I did it, and at the end of the quarter, we're going to have this big quarter assembly. Because they create these awards in PBIS, these little tickets, and it depends on, it's like teachers give them out for, kid comes in and sits down and smiles and says good morning, and they go, oh, thank you, that's such a great thing, and they reward it with some kind of a ticket, or some type of a thing. Every school creates their own little thing. Couple things happen when they do that. Number one, in many cases, in my experiences. It created a little bit of a commodity there. Kids learned how to duplicate these little tickets. Of course, the electronics kind of took that away. But anyway, a kid would come in and sit down and whatever and say, "Oh, I really love the way you came in and sat down and got right to work. I'm going to give you a ticket. Here's every school has their own name for them. The sword tickets or the eagle tickets or the whatever." So then the next, then some kid raises his hand. He gives a really good question, and they go, "Oh, that's a really good." But you're not supposed to give them for correct answers because you're not rewarding academics. You're not rewarding answers. You're rewarding behavior. So if the kid raises his hand, then you say, "Oh, that's way to go. I'm going to give you a ticket for raising your hand." And younger kids be like, "Oh, you're all walking on the right side of the hallway. I'm going to give you some tickets for that sort of thing." And it's not necessarily a bad thing, I don't think. But what happens is there's always the intended consequence, and then what really happens. What happens is the high flyers, as we call them, or the kids who are in the office the most, the kids who, when they walk through the door, the teacher goes, "Oh, God." Those kids end up getting showered with these tickets for every little thing they do that is good. Some kid who is usually the most disruptive kid walks through the classroom and sits down and starts getting to work. Then he starts getting, or she starts getting showered with these tickets or these rewards because they want to keep, "Oh my God, he's doing it. I can't believe it. Yeah, we're going to keep showering him with these tickets." And then that kid starts feeling, and yeah, they work sometimes. The kids, and then what happens is, come the end of the quarter, come to you're going to have your big parties or whatever the thing is for getting more and more tickets. Those kids are at the top of the list, and I'll never forget it. It was the first quarter I ever did it. At the end of the quarter, we looked at the list, and I looked at like the top 5 kids, and you gotta be kidding me. These kids have all been suspended two times and fighting and this time. But these are usually smart kids, right? And they have learned that they just go in and sit quietly and do a few things here and there. They get showered with tickets. They collect them up. Now they've got more tickets than everybody. That's one of the reasons that I never liked it. And again, the other, as I mentioned before, is simply because it just puts more on teachers. It doesn't really change anything. It just implements it more. And the people who love PBIS would probably argue with me till they're blue in the face and say that I'm wrong. And I respect that. But I've been in PBIS schools and I've been in non-PBIS schools. And honestly, I don't see the difference. And read this article. That's what I'm saying. Read this article. And I'll throw the link in it as well. So anyway, I'm sorry. Please like or subscribe to my channel if you wouldn't mind. It would be very, very nice if you did so. Thanks. Have a great day.